Hello, 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 America. It's great to be with you today. This is the American Awakening Squad, the Signs of Life live stream and podcast coming to you as we do every day at 12:30 on Facebook Live. And big news. We are now live as a podcast on all platforms. You can find us anywhere. Starting today. So how exciting is that? And you're going to hear more about our big launch push with Relevant Magazine, our friends at Relevant, and their big push with us to partner in this podcast push out. But first, we got a show to do here. So let's get it over to Josh Jacob. Josh, kick us off, my friend. What do you got for us?
All right, here we go. You said all them follow you may find the words of life and the truth of find. You're right to me. Where else could I go? The words of life and the truth you hold. All I want is love. I confess to thee, I will take it, Lord. All you have to give. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace, and the things of earth will breathe on in the light of his glory and grace, in the light of his glory and grace.
So good. So good.
Our things of earth will grow dim. Man, that's strong. And boy, is that on time for today.
Yeah.
Look, we've got a tough time here in America. We got a tough time in the world. Since the last time we've seen you all, 1,200 fellow Americans have died from this corona alone. That number will go to 200,000 by the best estimates today. 10 million of our fellow Americans have filed for unemployment in this last week. Numbers which have never been seen before, ever. So these numbers are devastating. The headwinds are fierce, and it's going to get worse for a while before it gets better, which is so sobering. As Lennon was reputed to have said, a million deaths is a statistic and one death is a tragedy. These numbers don't capture fully what it feels day in, day out, where you are, where you're living, where you can't get to a loved one who's dying, where you feel like you can't pay the rent or get food on the table for your kids. And we here feel you every single day on that. That's why we're here. We did the craziest thing ever in history, which is 3 weeks ago coming up with this idea and launching To Go Daily, because we feel you guys. We're here for you. We love you. Anybody who's out there in the sound of our reach of our sound, our voice, we love you. We're praying for you. We're thinking about you. We get together and pray for you daily. So these things will grow dim ultimately. That is the truth. That is the reality. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna be hard, but we're gonna get beyond this, folks. We're here with you. And now let me kick it over to my friends, Pastor Joel Searby in Gainesville, Florida. What's the cool hat today, Joel?
Today we've got Sycamore Brewing from Charlotte, North Carolina. Shout out to my brother John on that one. Thanks. John, your lead-in was really appropriate for my thought today. So today and each day, guys, we're going to bring you a little daily dose of truth, a daily dose we hope that will give you some life and some light in a time when we really need it. But today, I'm really thinking about who is God. According to a lot of research right now, and just all you got to do is open up the news or look on social media, a lot of people are asking questions about who God is. People are praying more than ever, according to a recent study that I read yesterday. And I think it's a time when we need to ask ourselves some big, big questions about who God is, because this is not a time to put God into some kind of box. Because right now, folks, we need a God that does not fit neatly into the pages of our Bible or squarely into the frameworks of our theology or our denomination. We don't need a God who fits comfortably in the smallness of our own desires. Right now, we need a God who is at the same time bigger than all the stars in the sky and nearer than our most intimate friend. We need a God who is more expansive than the mountains of the west and yet more intricate than the smallest flower in the field. We need a God who is bigger than the virus that can kill our bodies, but who will sit close enough to be with us if we are to pass from this mortal earth. We need a God who is bigger than death itself, who has defeated death, and yet has also come so close as to bring us life. This is the kind of God that we need right now. This is the kind of God that I believe in. This is the kind of God that we are crying out to and saying, we know, God, you are way bigger than our constructs. We know, God, that you are way bigger than anything we can possibly imagine. And yet at the same time of being so expansive, God, you are so close to us. You are right next to us. No one is dying alone because you are with us. You are Emmanuel, God with us. And we cling to that today. And I speak that out to you if you're hearing me. God is with you. And we are standing with you. This is the God we need. We need that big, expansive God, and we need this intimate, close God. And as we seek that God, I am confident that that God is meeting us where we're at. And so we pray together, and I ask you guys to pray with us. Have mercy, God. Be near to us. Draw near to us. If you guys need prayer, if there's specific things that you need, please put them in the comments. We do read those, and we are praying for you. We are here for you, and that's what we're about here at the American Awakening, is to not give up on the belief that there is a God, that he loves us, and there is a life that is truly life, even in the face of death. John, that's our daily dose today. Back to you.
Thank you, Joel. That is so encouraging. One of the best words ever, Emmanuel. God is with us.
Yeah.
Remember, folks, as we're wrestling with this, we know and serve a God that came to be with us so he could experience all this that we're going through and even more and even worse into the gates of hell to overcome all this. And that is what the God with us idea is. Jeff, over to you, man.
Ooh, what a start today. I like that. Encouraging, powerful, and sobering. I like that word you used, John. It is true. But the cool part is even in sobering moments, there's hope. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. In classic fashion, I'm going to talk about something I nerd out on, and then hopefully there will be some spiritual truth at the end, but I guess we'll see when we get there, right? And what I wanted to chat about this morning, which hopefully I think is very pertinent right now to what we're going through, is the quick story behind the standardization of time. Now, this is a fascinating story that actually I do think has some seriousness at the end. But a lot of us don't realize that our standardization of time, the way we think about it, the way that we all have clocks that say the exact same thing, basically all across the world, given time zones, but you know what I mean, is actually a relatively new invention, if you want to call it, innovation, that goes back to about the 1800s. Now, this was out of necessity once basically the not automobile industry, but the railroad industry started taking off, because what the railroad industry did is it made us need standardized time, because now we're going out of localities, right? And there was actually a lot of crashes and a lot of things that were just disgruntled and didn't make sense and just were not organized. And people, because time actually was a little bit more relative then, it was based on the sun, it was based where you at, each city got to kind of make up their own time at some level. But trains, because of the disorganization, people said, hey, we need to get on the same time. And so then we invented standardized time that actually started at the Greenwich Observatory. So that's still to this day, that's the first time zone for that reason, because that's what everything else is based off of. But here's what's really interesting. Once time got standardized, how did everyone get the standardized time, right? And what happened is time actually very quickly, once it became standardized, became a commodity that we would actually buy and sell. So Ruth Belleville, if you have time, go Google her. I have a whole book on her. It's fascinating. Her entire family built almost 100-year business empire on the backs of buying and selling time. So her job was to go to the observatory, kind of sync her, pocket watch with the observatory. And then she would go out every single day. She did this for like 50 years, go to the observatory and then go around to all the businesses and sell them the time. Here's what time it is. You want standardized time. You need to buy it from me and access to it. Very fascinating story. But what's interesting is sociologists have looked at this is the moment that actually changed a lot of things. It's not a coincidence that things like anxiety, things in regards to hustle and hurry, things in regards to the speed at which we go about our life can be traced back to this moment, because we commodified and kind of dehumanized time to be something that can be measured down to the millisecond and then bought and sold. And I think a lot of us, the scriptures say we are what we worship. And I don't think we realize it, but I think we worship time. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that our hearts feel just like a stopwatch, tick, 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 right? There's this pressure, there's this push in all of our hearts. And I think it's almost like you can almost think of time like a straight line or a rocket ship that's just shooting us out into the future. And we feel this immense pressure. And even in this moment, with all this time on our hands, we feel like this pressure to make something of it or be productive or do something rather than sit in the sacredness of it. And the scriptures kind of have an antithetical vision of time where it's not necessarily a straight line, but I like to think of time as more like a spiral, right? That it's kind of going forward, coming back, going forward, coming back in rhythms and rituals, daily, weekly, yearly. And to me, I think that's what we need right now. We need to understand that time is not a commodity to buy and sell, that there's no pressure behind our backs pushing us, but time is actually sacred, something to sit in. And it's about being, not doing. Sacredness of let's re-sacredize relationships. Let's re-sacredize. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Love. Let's re-sacredize our marriage and our kids by not trying to commodify them because of time, but to actually sit in them, honor them, and keep them sacred with love at the center. So that's my word for today. Hope it's encouraging to you guys.
Jeff, consider me mind blown. Holy cow. I've never heard the story about standardization of time. Man.
Fascinating, right?
And I was looking it up while you're talking. 1847 was the year. I'm not sure you gave that, but 1847.
No, I didn't. I can't pull all the exact facts. I'm
Come
sorry.
on, man.
We actually need you in moments like this, John. When was it? Yeah, I said 1800s, but yeah, isn't that crazy?
1847, and then it was standardized across the UK, Great Britain by 1855. Basically, it started in 1847. By 1855, it was on. But I've never thought of that. And that is a really rich observation you're bringing about the commoditization point. That's where the mind blown gets. I mean, the fact that it didn't exist before that way, that's fascinating. But the fact that, the way we think about it and how to think about the sacred and how to, in the West, where we're so tied to it, what to do with all these things. And so I would like to tease this topic for tomorrow's discussion for listeners out there, viewers out there, for our team. The mix of the Emmanuel, God is with us point, right? Which is like, timeless, somehow all of time infused into a moment.
Look at that right there. That's good.
I know that is good.
Every once in a while I come up with and the idea of the way we chunk it up, and the way that internal clock, that stopwatch you were talking about, that just it's a fascinating take. And so tomorrow we're going to talk about this as a group a little bit and unpack those two dimensions, God's vision of time, who we are is embodiment of the eternal in this moment we're in. At the same time, we have realities we have to face because somebody else is keeping a clock. So how do we manage all those things? All right, shifting gears, we're going to go to the regular feature. Wow, so that's happening out there. There's so much interesting that's happening. I just want to say, something which I'm going to keep saying day every day, or try to say every day. We get so much in here, but folks, if you're at home and you haven't checked out, if you're an independent contractor, you're a sole proprietor, or you're a small business person, check out the Paycheck Protection Program under the CARES Act. That is for real help. Almost anybody who's a small business person or a contractor or a sole proprietor, you qualify. I mean, of course, I can't give guidance on every single person out there, but tell everybody. It gives you effectively, once you apply and get approved, which is going to be a hard process. Don't get me wrong on that. Once you apply and get approved, you're basically getting free money for the government for 2.5 months, up to $100,000 of wages for anybody who's in your business. Or again, if you're a sole proprietor or a contractor, you too. So anyway, I'm just going to mention this day over day for a while because I just want everybody to know about it. It's a real lifeline. I'm finding a lot of people are not familiar with it yet, and a week from now, probably most everybody out there will know. But so far, I'm still finding a lot of folks don't know about the lifeline that the government's thrown in that regard. Everybody's talking about the $1,200 check that they're going to send, or $500 per kid, which is magnificent. But this is way more important. As important as that is, this is way more important. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Now over to Calvin for a little bit of sports in real time, or sports franchises in real time storyline.
No, thanks for that, John. And again, every day, here we are, just trying to bring you stories to remind you of who we are, and that to bolster our faith in our God, and remember that He is good, and even now He is at work. So whether you love Him or hate Him, the New England Patriots have stepped up even during the time of Corona. Patriots owner Robert Kraft is stepping up to help medical professionals who are caring for coronavirus patients. Patriots plane is full of much needed protective gear for healthcare workers, including 1.2 million N95 masks. And it's on its way from Massachusetts to Massachusetts from China. The help comes after Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker has for weeks described attempts to order personal protective equipment for these workers, but only to be outbid by either other countries or the federal government. Kraft will join Governor Baker to greet the plane when it arrives in Boston, and the supplies will be transported by the National Guard to a stockpile. We all know how important those masks are and any other protective gear is to keeping our healthcare workers safe. So to Governor Baker, to Mr. Kraft, and we thank you. And the Pats. Thank you, Patriots. Now, in other news, we have the Treasury Department, who announced on Wednesday that seniors on Social Security will not have to file a tax return to receive a stimulus check. The reversal comes after lawmakers urged the Treasury Department to send Social Security recipients their payments automatically. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, he said that Social Security recipients who are not typically required to file a tax return need to take no action and will receive their payment directly to their bank account. In a Treasury Department press release, they said that individuals who do not receive their Social Security beneficiaries through direct deposit, they will receive a check. So again, a couple great stories reminding us that though it is painful and awful out there, that right now, that there's still signs of life. So remember who you are, who we are, and that we were created to overcome, and that yeah, we're gonna get through this together. But I'm gonna pitch the ball over to Marisa, who will be introducing our bigger story of today and our discussion question.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we are a resilient people. It is within our nature to be caring and looking out for one another. It's who we are. And so this is the moment for all of us to rise up in that. We have a great story today of some women who came together because they were really concerned about the Amish. Now, again, we know very few of us live near Amish communities, so they sort of seem like folks that most people are not thinking about. But Mary Swander, who's a retired professor who lives in Kelowna, Iowa, she lives right next to an Amish community. And after a few conversations with her neighbors, she realized that they probably were not going to be able to get all the information that they needed to be prepared for Corona. She said they had a vague inkling about it, but without TV, radio, and internet, they wouldn't know how bad it was. So from her window, actually, a few weeks ago, she was able to look out and see kids who were still riding their bicycles at their current school. And she knew what exposure to Corona would actually mean for the community if they hadn't gotten word of social distancing. She said they have their own businesses as blacksmiths or wheelwrights or doing concrete work. They all have customers coming to their farm from the outside world. And so she knew it wasn't going to be okay for them to be allowing all sorts of folks to come in and them just not be aware of what was going on. So she went out of her own accord and she made copies of the latest information that she could find about Corona from the CDC. She put them in every mailbox that she could find of every Amish family in her community, but she still felt like that wasn't enough and like she had to do more. So then she called her friend, Stephanie Leonard, who's lived for over 20 years near an Amish community, in a community actually nearby hers in Riverside, Iowa. And I guess Stephanie was already isolating herself, because most of us are. But she got really alarmed when she began to think about her Amish neighbors and her friends over the years. And so, if no one was going to tell them, what were they going to do? So she reached out to several county health departments, and the offices are thinning out. She wasn't able to get most people when she tried, but she finally reached another woman named Danielle Pettit Majewski, who also had been thinking and brewing about the Amish community and what they were going to do. And so apparently the community that she became really close with because of vaccinations that she supervised, she knew that Amish communities, they don't have telephones, but each community typically has one phone booth. And I guess they check the messages daily. They also have a bishop in every community. So Danielle called this one phone booth and kept leaving messages. And finally, a bishop got hold of the messages, called her back. She told him over the phone about, again, limiting to groups less than 10, washing your hands frequently, keeping the 6 feet of space between them. And she also told the bishop that the governor had ordered schools to close, which really seemed to resonate with him. So basically, after that, again, people sort of lost word. These are communities that are pretty closed. But I guess there's a community doctor in the Amish community that Danielle reached out to, who passed on to her that they did start shutting down schools. They did start implementing all sorts of rules and regulations, and that they canceled an upcoming gathering, which would have had hundreds of Amish folks coming from around the country. And Stephanie Leonard, again, the originator of her story, was saying that she thought that she was just doing what she hoped anybody would do in a time of great uncertainty. She said, we all should try to be good neighbors because we're all in this together. And so again, this story of these 3 women who just had this sort of inkling within their hearts to reach out, to go beyond, to even basically, while they had been quarantined, began to be making moves to reach back out into the world to make sure that no one was left behind. This is, this could be any one of us, and it probably should be all of us to some degree. And so our discussion topic for the day is, when you hear all of that, you hear people going beyond, reaching out, continuing to bang on doors until someone listens. What really strikes you guys most about that story? And even beyond that, when you think about your own lives, do you remember a time when someone's gone out of their way to help you? And if so, what happened, and what were the lessons that you gleaned from that you held on to?
Oh, that's a good question. Mm-hmm.
Marisa, do you have one to lead us with? Come on, give us some reflection.
Oh, she's ready. Look at her raise those glasses. She goes, well.
Oh, you know me too well,
me.
Jeff. You know me too well. I gotta say, I've been a beneficiary of a lot of people who have who've gone out of their way to help me. There are times when I can remember sort of being off places and not really knowing how I was going to sort of get to where I needed to be. And all I could really do was sort of cry out in the moment. And, somehow God is bringing resources. God's bringing people. God's somehow negotiating things. I've been really protected through the years. And quite honestly, the lesson that I've gleaned from these times when people have sort of reached out and continued to knock on my door and bang on my head when I couldn't see clearly, was that that there's always help out there. When you might feel either like your pride will keep you from reaching out, or you think nobody will understand, or you feel so deep down in something, so confused that you're not quite sure how to get out of it, I promise you, there is always help out there, and God is always listening and negotiating on our behalf, crying out on our behalf, moving things around. You're never on your own. So that's something that has stuck with me through the years. I will go down swinging, saying, I know he's going to figure out a path for me somehow.
Amen. I love that, Marisa. That's so good.
Amen. So good.
You kind of flipped it around a little bit in a way, which is in an interesting way. And basically, not only did you acknowledge that all the people that have helped you, but just sort of a little bit, you kind of put it on each one of us to look for it too.
That's right.
Which is interesting, right? So on the one hand, we're saying, well, other people have been great to us, and I have 1,000 examples of that. I'm sure many, all of you do. Everybody within earshot probably does as well. But you're also saying, the bit, it kind of relates to the asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, knock the door to be open to you, right? Sort of like, it's out there. Don't forget, it's out there. I mean, it's maybe elusive, maybe challenging to find. You may be pent up by yourself, and you're living alone right now. But don't give up, because there are people. There is somebody out there that's going to be there for you, and God's always there for you too. So I know.
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. No. I think, especially in times of great fear or trepidation, you're at these cross, points in your life. You're not quite sure where to go. And I think our temptation is to lock up and to draw back and to shrink back and think that no one could understand, no one could help, whatever. And I'm telling you, there is always somebody out there. Again, you all don't know me, you don't know my backstory, but I promise you, there's somebody out there somewhere. God is not going to leave you without any kind of resource. And there is another way to get from one day to another. I promise. Just keep walking and keep looking for it.
I got to jump in here because that really is like so connected to the story that I was thinking about on this. So when I was in college, I was serving this little tiny town in a church that had like 12 people, and we were just trying to meet needs. And I met this old woman. She was probably in her 80s. She had no legs from diabetes, and her power had been turned off. And her house was next door to a church, a different church. And little preview here, I'm not throwing shade on churches. I love the church, but there's a little bit of a message here too. And so she had lost her power, and I tried to run an extension cord from her house over to the church, and I knocked on the door. I talked to the pastor. I was like, hey, can we just at least keep her fridge running so she can have food? And the pastor said no. And so now I'm like scrambling and trying to figure out, how do we help this woman? And here I am, like this college kid. I don't know what to do. It's this tiny town. The only other thing besides two churches in this town was a bar. And so I go to the bar and I go up to the bartender and I'm like, hey man, we've got this woman, she's trying to keep her food cold. Could we just get some ice to put in her coolers? And I mean, without hesitation, he said yes. And so that has stuck with me for a long time, that not only should we not assume who might help and who not, who will not, but God forbid that the people of God would not be the first ones to answer the call. And so for me, that's been like, that's a challenge for us as people who say, like, we follow God, we want to serve others. Like, be ready to say yes on the one hand, but also if you're in that stuck position, like you were saying, Marisa, like you'd be very surprised at who might step up and serve you.
So real. Yep.
So good.
Every time.
And if anything, that also shows us how big God is, right? I mean, how surprising. You said that to expand our expectations of the ways that he might work, right? That maybe we thought it would be a church, but it was a bar. It's funny how Lord even flips the script there. It's crazy.
Anybody else have one? I got one, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes here.
Go
Jeff?
for it, JK.
All right, you want me to go? All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna make it real, keep it real. Like this has happened within this last week. I just say, folks, this venture that we're on is a very unusual one. 3 weeks ago, we didn't even know of the existence of the idea of a daily show. 3 weeks ago, this was not in anybody's mind. And now 3 weeks later, here we are on every platform and going large with Relevant and lots of other partners out there. And in between that time, I had my doubts about what we're doing. Day over day, we show up and we do the best we can. And I had, had the conviction that we should be reaching out and serving. But, I just got to last Friday. This is just 6 days ago. We're about to just really take off after doing this day over day for a while and practicing. And I just wasn't sure, where I'd go with this. Am I really supposed to be doing this? This thing, we just made it up. Are we just making stuff up that shouldn't exist, or are we doing something of service? And so in real time last Friday morning, I reached out to some really dear friends, spiritual directors, important people in my life that have been guides throughout. When my book comes out in July, you'll hear about a couple of these special friends. Shout out to Steve Macchia, Ray Hammond, Pastor Ray Hammond, and Pastor Herman Hamilton, and amazingly, I asked them at 9 o'clock in the morning last Friday, and we had them all on a 2-hour conference call at 5 o'clock that day for me to lay out all the facts, along with Marisa and my wife, and say, are we supposed to be doing this or not? And it was just it was a miracle. I mean, frankly, to get 3 busy people like that, together that day, and have them sit with me and process where we were and where we are and what we should be doing. And they were like, you got to do this, man. You got to do this. This is the thing. This is the deal. This is where you got to go. You've got to run hard at this. The point, though, is that the story is that number one, I felt an acute need. Number two, per Marissa's counsel, I put it out there. 3, miraculously, people showed up. And 4, it really helped. And so I was super and deeply encouraged by that. Does that qualify as a good enough story, Marisa?
I think so.
That's good.
Hey,
Sure does. Sure
whatever
does.
you got is enough today, JK.
Okay.
That's the truth. It's real.
Anybody got anything before we go over to the movie line of the day and get to our musical guests? All right, so I'm kicking it over to Mr. Bethke in Maui for a little old-timey movie action.
Yeah, where are we going? Back to 1940, I think, today. But this is a good choice. The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin, and I think a little longer movie line, too, so we get to really get the meat on this one. But yeah, this is a great one, and I love. Who picks these out? John, is this you or is this Marisa? Because you guys are picking out these nuggets. These are good.
It's Marisa, and she is doing a magnificent job. I'm a huge movie person, but Marissa's doing it.
Marisa, you're killing it. And I don't know. I was even thinking this morning too, before we get to movie line tangent. Just whoever's pulling out these stories too, and I live on the internet, and I'm missing some of these. So whoever's doing that is you're killing the game. I almost use the what you guys email out as the run of the show, I almost use as my intake for the day before I even get on the show. I don't need to follow these people. I don't need to follow these people on Twitter and do all this because she's handling biz over there. So Marisa, you're killing it and you're amazing. I just wanted to put that tangent in there. Okay. I think Marina's in the background. Go ahead and toss on the movie line of the day.
But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way.
So good. First of all, not only is that amazing, but can we just talk about, I wish we could speak like that. Whatever accent that it is, whatever voice that is, he barely opens his mouth and it just sounds incredible.
It was his first speaking film, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Marisa, you want to say a little bit more about the film and where it sits in history? By the way, everybody, Marisa went to film school, so she can drop some science.
Did you really?
I did. And
I did
to
not
tell
know that.
Well,
law school, film school, whatever school. She's done it.
Yeah.
I love my schooling. I do. But no, I'm a little Rain Man-ish sometimes when it comes to film. I'll tell the truth. But no, yeah, this was his first speaking film. Of course, we all know Charlie Chaplin, a history of silent film. He's the great. He's the one that everybody sort of points to. But yeah, this film was a condemnation of Hitler and fascists and all the, of course, Nazis, the work of the time. And Chaplin actually, he plays dual roles. He plays this fascist dictator, and then he also plays a persecuted Jewish barber. And this is a film that is in the National Film Registry. It is a classic. And Chaplin actually said years later in 1964 in his autobiography that he wouldn't have been able to make it had he known actually just how bad the concentration camps were at the time. So it's a classic. Check it out, y'all.
So before we kick it over to Nashville, I'm going to just emphasize one point about that. The film was made in 1940.
Wow.
So Charlie Chaplin was calling this out along with whoever else was on the film. But just to say how the ebbs and flows of these things go, America wasn't even ready to get in the war yet. The beginning of the worst wasn't even about to start. And there was 5 years of really bad that was coming. I believe that we are not going to go through 5 years of really bad on this. I think that we're gonna have weeks and months that are gonna be super tough. So get ready, buckle in and all that. But just think about look back in history at people who were in tough times. He was calling out a terrible thing that was going to have to go years and years and years of badness. I mean, colossal badness, 25 million dead badness before we emerge from the other side. So anyway, you just take a couple of minutes there, every day and sort of think about, how it felt before and where people were and it, puts it into context a little bit and helps you think about how you're going to get through this yourself, like our forebears did. All right. Dan Haseltine, you've been sitting too long. There you are.
The story of my life.
Yes.
Sitting for too long.
And we've been just so eager to have you and your musical guest today. It's so great to see you face, Dan. Good to see you all.
Thanks. It's great to be on from Nashville. I should just let everybody know that you're doing great. You're doing really great. We're almost to the end of the week. And everybody out there, it's tough. Even today, I was on a feed earlier today and I had to run out to my living room and be like, hey, all my kids, get off the internet. I had to do stuff like that today. So, which is just the normal business experience for most people, right? You walk out of your office, run and go tell your kids to get off the internet because you're wrecking things. But anyway, so today we're back. We brought back our good friends, Jamal Wade Hines and Moksha Summer, who collectively are HuDost. And we are so great to have them on. I've known them for quite a while now. We've done a lot of work on advocacy for folks up on the Hill, trying to fight against extreme poverty. Their hearts are incredible. Their music is really fantastic. Their story is really phenomenal. And one of the things that I just wanted to say about it that we didn't get to earlier was just while you're watching them perform today, I want you to keep in mind that in 2008, Moksha actually had a brain tumor and was what has this incredible story of having surgery and having to relearn language skills, how to talk, regain, proper sight. And so part of their mission has really been to find or to bring healing through sound, through music. And it's something they've been doing, I think, very well. I've had the chance to work with them in the studio. We performed live a few times. We even got to play here in Nashville at the Bluebird. And so it's just my great honor to be able to bring to you all today from Kentucky, not Nashville, but from Kentucky, our good friends HuDost.
Woo! Welcome.
Dan, that's so sweet. You made me almost teary-eyed before we start here. I want to share too, we're going to start with a song that's a very new song, and it's kind of a sad song, but I feel like a lot of people right now are struggling with depression and with addiction. And this is a song about that struggle, but about the reclaiming and recreation of one's story and one's path. I will always come to places fears made for down. Crutch and bottle, break and throttle, tired and more worn down. It's signaling the end for me. The fear of mediocrity, the loss of all identity, to the jowls of the dark. I will always wreck my passage right before it comes. Use the needle, not the steeple, searching for the crumbs. It's signaling the death for me. The truth is just too bright to see. My worth is my own enemy, and excuses are my friends. This is how my story ends. This is where the line begins. I'm falling down again. I'm falling down again. Rake and shovel, ask for trouble. I won't look that far. Broken teacup, shattered kneecap, I forget the bar. It's signaling the end for me. I've lost all simplicity. I've forgotten how to breathe without the pain. This is how my story ends. This is where the line begins. I'm not falling down again. I'm not falling down again. This is how my story ends. This is where the line begins. I'm not falling down again. I'm not falling down again. I'm not falling down again. I'm not falling down again.
good.
Wow.
Fantastic.
That's good.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Good to hear you guys playing together. And
Nothing froze this time.
I think we were all praying and we're all going, all right, it's going to stay on this time. So we're getting a good chance to hear you guys play, which I'm really grateful for. You got another song for us?
We have a song that we wrote with you, Dan, actually.
Yes.
We wondered about doing it. The word on the street is that you had a dream about this very song last night. Is that right?
I was thinking a lot about the lyrics to this song, actually. Songs are weirdly prophetic at this time. I remember U2 when they had released that album, All That You Can't Leave Behind. And I remember seeing them play and perform a show, and it was pre 9/11. And then that same record just, played it again right after 9/11. And the songs had all of this different meaning and but it was almost as if the writing just was such a great precursor to the events in history that took place. And this is one of those songs where, for me, as I was thinking of the lyric, I thought, wow, this is weirdly, oddly prophetic in its in some of the lyrics that we had on this one.
Yeah, and I feel like when we wrote this song, it definitely reflects the advocacy work that we do together in terms of what it means to bring our voices together on behalf of those whose voices are not heard, and the power of advocacy. But I think especially in this time, that's even more essential in terms of being able to really have a collective voice and a voice of kindness and compassion in this time. So we thought it would be a good second song to share today.
Fantastic.
And Dan, sing along.
Dan's on the video.
Yeah, right.
All the guys' jars are on the album version and on the video, so you can find it. Called Rise Together.
I had a dream. I shed the last tear in the world. Everyone's looking at me. I had the thought everybody moves to the same light, and we will find our way. No, nothing's meaningless. The dream is my unevenness, and every step will push us to the place. Set foot in the river, float out to the ocean, fall down to the bottom, and we will all rise. Step off of the mountain, fall down to the valley, bury your body. All rise together. How could we know our hands would become weapons of war? And what about peace? I saw the rain and the colors that bled from the clouds and the sun in the daylight. Nothing was left unknown as feeling alone. We found our restlessness, the dream is our own evidence, and every step will push us to the place. Set foot in the river, float out to the ocean, fall down to the bottom, and we will all rise. Step off of the mountain, fall down to the valley, bury your body. All rise together, we'll all rise together, we'll all. Rise up again, rise up again, oh won't you rise up again, rise up again. foot in the river, float out to the ocean, fall down to the bottom, and we will all rise, step off of the mountain, fall down to the valley, very own body. All rise together, we'll all rise together, we'll all rise together, and we will all rise together, we'll all rise together, we'll all rise together, and we will all rise together, we'll all rise together, we'll all. I had a dream.
Yeah, we'll all rise together. Yeah.
All rise together.
Yes, we'll all rise together.
Thanks, Dan.
Well done. Thanks so much for being on with us today.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
Yeah.
Great show. We're honored and grateful to be here.
Everything that was shared was so beautiful. Thank you all for what you're doing.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That was
Incredible way to end.
beautiful and inspiring, and a great cap to today's show. If you loved hearing these guys online, you're going to love them even more when you listen to them in the podcast, because it's going to sound a lot better. We got the top technology bringing you crisp sound on that. That was beautiful via live stream. It'll be even better on the pod.
Yeah.
Check us out in all formats now. As of today, big news. Anyway, until tomorrow, guys, we're thinking about y'all. We're praying for y'all. We've been through these issues before. We've been through the challenges before. We've seen these types of headwinds. We're here for you. You've got it in you to make it. God's got you. We love you. God loves you. You're made for purpose, meaning, and significance, and keep fighting the good fight until tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.